Welcome to Two Truths, where we explore controversial topics in religion, philosophy, and history from at least two different perspectives. I'm Dr. Darren Iammarino, and today we're going to be looking at lost civilizations. Really popular topic. There are a lot of videos out there on it already, right? But I think that I can provide a bit of a unique insight in terms of some new ways of going against the hypothesis. Now, I want to say, right out of the gate, that I am, like many of you probably, fascinated by the possibility of pushing the timeline back in terms of civilization. And yes, with things like Göbekli Tepe, it kind of has done that. But there's going to be a pretty interesting dividing line between maybe what we've pushed back with Göbekli Tepe and this further claim that there might have been an advanced civilization or civilizations, right? Something like 14,000 plus years ago. All right, so let's dive into this. It's going to be a two-parter. This first part, we're going to look at two arguments that kind of work against this hypothesis. So, number one, pretty simple when you think about this. Why use way older technology if you have way more advanced technology? So a lot of these claims is that people will say ancient Egypt or in Mesopotamia, what are typically viewed as sort of our first civilizations, that they're actually either way older or they retain knowledge from an older lost civilization, or they retain technology, hence how the pyramids were built or something like this. But let's get back to what I'm trying to spell out now. If you've got way more advanced technology, which seems to be the claim, whatever that technology is, that's another problem. It's rarely spelled out, anti-gravity or it's lasers or whatever it is. There's never really a very clear statement on what sort of technology we're even talking about. But if you've got something super advanced from a prior civilization, say, then why would you still have literally hundreds of thousands of examples of simple tools? So, yes, we actually do have in the archaeological record tons of examples of copper tools, right? So whether it's chisels or whether it's something that's even put with the dead in a funerary rite to do the opening of the mouth ceremony that the wealthy might have, for example, Tutankhamun had in his tomb. So there's lots of different examples of, say, copper tools. There's also lots of examples of boats in ancient Egypt. Just to stick with Egypt as a simple example, because it's often brought up. For example, the pyramids, right? There are boat pits. Some people know that. It might not be as commonly known, but I think a lot of people know that now. There are boat pits that are supposed to take the deceased pharaoh, right, across the sky. So, but full-on boat, not just a toy model, which we also have a lot of those toy model boats, right, if you're not rich. But full-on boat, right, for the pharaoh, for Khufu, let's say, in this case. And there are other examples of ancient boats, and whether it's Greek or Egypt, right, or Phoenicians or whatever it is, there are examples of these sort of simpler boats. So what I'm getting at is, why would you still have a whole bunch of copper tools, a whole bunch of really simple boats, if you supposedly are like a seafaring civilization, which like Graham Hancock will frequently discuss, some ancient seafaring civilization, right? It's pretty bizarre to think that you would continue to use way simpler technology. And I get we could counter a lot of this, be like, well, it's way more expensive, right? To have like the more advanced technology. Maybe they only had a few remaining working, models or examples of this more like higher lost tech. There's just like that stuff still won't hold up, because it's like if you only had a few examples of like some advanced tech, then how are you using it on large scale building projects, say like the Sphinx or the pyramid or whatever else? Stuff breaks down. Our best technology on a 20 plus year project, everything breaks down, and you have to have replacement parts, right? Or completely replace the entire, right, system or tool or whatever it is. So I think, let me phrase it this way to everyone. How many of you are using a pager, a payphone, a horse and buggy, writing in cursive, telegrams? That's not that old. A lot of those things, it's really not that old, right? But as soon as we have better tech, these things pretty quickly can get just totally phased out. So that's kind of what my first main point here is, that it's bizarre to me that you would still be producing so much of this much simpler, right, form of technology. It just doesn't seem what like human nature would do. But again, I open up to a lot of comments, feedback. I welcome that. And in no way am I saying that I'm a particular expert on, ancient boats, say, or even copper tools. I am a religious studies expert, and I do have a pretty good background in terms of ancient history generally. But, there's a lot of these niche fields. So I'm not saying that that I know, all the details. But I think I know enough to make this claim, and I'd like to hear how people would counter that. Right? So again, why are we using so much of this simple old tech if we've got way more advanced knowledge and technology available to us, right? So that's number one. Number two. Where is the advanced writing? It's inconceivable to me that you could be so able to move and cut large, very, very, very large, right, stone slabs, but there's just no writing. Like the claim is like, oh, look at these perfect 90-degree, cuts and all this. Like you'll see on these videos. And I don't know what technology, again, they're supposedly using. Let's say it's some laser technology or whatever. Or super advanced type of, diamond point saws or whatever it is. You would be able to carve very, beautifully carved, if you have the skill level, text. How are you even able to make something like, say, a laser or a boat? Let's get simple. Like a really advanced boat, seafaring boat. How could you possibly make that without having intergenerational knowledge? Even if someone figures it out or a small group of people figure it out, how are they going to communicate all those skills, right? Like without writing, to the next generations? It's baffling that we've got so many examples of, Egyptian hieroglyphs, of cuneiform, of Indus Valley script, even if we don't know what it says, we've got it. Göbekli Tepe, there's no there's no advanced writing so far. Yes, they obviously haven't uncovered all of it, and we don't really need to get into that. But from what they've uncovered so far, there's no advanced writing. Don't really know. It would be, I think it's kind of a stretch to say there's even proto-writing. Maybe there is. But even if we were to grant that somehow there was full-on like proto-writing somewhere in Göbekli Tepe or nearby, we're talking about apparently advanced tech, right? Like, how on earth? Think about like a user manual for your computer or TV or whatever it is. It's like 100-page manual maybe. And if we're talking about like actually a manual where you're talking about like dissecting all the different parts and how to fix it, right? It's a lot of jargon. It's a lot of, right, complex diagrams, things like this. So you really kind of have to ask ourselves, like, why do we not see anything? There's no form of writing that has been excavated, right, from around the time period of, say, 12, 15, 20,000 years ago or whatever, right, that would show evidence of this lost civilization. And so let's try and counter it, right? This is Two Truths as a channel. You could conceivably say that it was destroyed. All examples were destroyed because of some Younger-Dryas event type thing, which is also very popular, right? Some climactic event where there's like either a comet or asteroid blowing up in the sky, destroying the civilization or whatever the particular claim may be. Floods, tsunami, I don't know. However you want to think of how like this lost civilization was destroyed. Again, if you're cutting out and making supposedly sanctuaries of the size of like a Göbekli Tepe on these like massive monoliths, they survive. Like, that's not going to be destroyed utterly. Sure, things get buried and you might damage stuff, obviously, but I just don't, think how many cataclysmic events have happened since Göbekli Tepe, and like, yet we still find it, right? And a lot of the details are there. So it's like, where is it, right? And why do we not only where is it, how come there's not just multiple, right, examples? So those are our first two pieces here. And I'm going to be starting to make a lot shorter videos. Some of my prior ones were more in depth on a specific topic, going like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. But now I'm aiming for more 15 minute, 20 minute. And I definitely invite all of you to comment. Please like and subscribe. It does help the channel. I am trying to push through 2025 to make as many videos as possible and to engage people from all different backgrounds. Again, I'm not trying to just discredit completely some hypothesis or theory, but I do think that we need to question, right, any hypothesis that's out there. Okay? So tell me what you think. Remember, this is part 1, and part 2 will be dropping shortly after part 1. And in the second part, we're going to be looking at 2 more arguments that are, one of them especially, I think is very unique. And it's coming from an area that you don't hear about, right, very frequently, in terms of like an area of like expertise, I guess, that you don't hear about that often, right? So make sure you check that out.